The battle for the top spot in the On3 consensus team recruiting rankings is going to come down to who can land the premium beef in the trenches. And this isn't your sales rack beef either. No, we're talking premium A5 Japanese Wagyu. No BOGO deals here. So you don't see this every year, but what's happening is there are 6 uncommitted 5-star defensive big men, and where they go could very well dictate who finishes with the #1 overall class in the 2023 cycle. Starting Friday, coaches can hit the recruiting trail for the opening of the contact period, also known as in-home visit season. Top programs will be doing some last-minute National Signing Day shopping, recruiting. Just hear me out. As the On3 team rankings stand today, Alabama's #1, followed by Georgia, Notre Dame, Ohio State, and Texas. How this group finishes will likely be determined by which top 5 program can land one or more of the remaining 5-star defensive linemen. Who are the remaining 5-star defensive linemen? It's Damon Wilson, Keon Keeley, Mateo Uiagalelei, James Smith, Quay Rousseau, and Samuel Mpimba. Of course, this isn't the only path to the #1 class. As you know, the stretch run to signing day always leads to a few big surprises or flips, and this year is going to be no different. But let's dig in a little further. The teams in common for all these uncommitted defensive linemen are Alabama, Ohio State, and Georgia. Notre Dame and Texas are not really under consideration, which will make it hard for those 2 teams to move up considerably in the team rankings. First, let's look at Alabama. Already in the pole position, Alabama has a very good shot at landing Keon Keeley. It's a Bama and Ohio State battle, with Alabama getting an unofficial visit from Keeley last weekend, which could be his last trip before he makes a decision. In-home visits with Keeley will start this week, so there's a chance that Ohio State could sway him, but I think Alabama is going to be really tough to beat here. I also like where Alabama sits with 5-star defensive linemen teammates Quay Rousseau and James Smith. Alabama's biggest competition for the Carver duo actually comes from in-state rival. Despite their season, the Tigers are making a really big push for Rousseau and Smith. Alabama has other positional targets still remaining on the board, but I think their easiest route to locking down that #1 spot would be to land Keeley, Smith, and Rousseau. All right, Georgia currently sits at #2. Their path to #1 could be possible if they finish this class with Damon Wilson and Samuel Mpimba. The Dogs have been the longtime favorite for Mpimba, and they look to be on pace to land him. Tennessee was the toughest competition, but I think that they faded down the stretch, and I would just go ahead and pencil Mpimba into Georgia's class right now. If UGA is going to overtake Alabama in the rankings, though, they're going to need to land Damon Wilson. The 5-star from Venice, Florida, was in Columbus, Ohio this past weekend, making one last trip to check out the Buckeyes. And word is a decision could be coming soon from Wilson. Georgia has a few other targets on the board that could also help them. 4-star defensive lineman Jordan Hall and 5-star tight end Deuce Robinson. But they'll still need that premium beef if they really want a shot at #1. Let's move on to Notre Dame. They sit at #3. The Irish, they're really not involved with any of the 5-star defensive linemen that we're talking about, and they'll probably be lucky to finish where they're at right now. The reason I say this, and hear me out, it's twofold. First off, their top-rated commitment and only 5-star in the class, Peyton Bowen out of Texas, has been committed to Notre Dame since January. But he's publicly saying that he's got to, quote, make a final decision in the next couple weeks. And there's a chance that he could flip to Oklahoma or Texas A&M. Secondly, Notre Dame just doesn't have a whole lot of star power remaining on the recruiting board. I'm not saying that they're not going to sign good players. It just means that they might not have enough to hold on to that 3 spot, especially if they lose 5-star Peyton Bowen. Ohio State, they currently sit at #4, but they're in a position to move up. As we mentioned, Damon Wilson was in Columbus this past weekend, and a decision could come before the early signing day, which is only about 3 weeks away. Wilson is a key piece for Ohio State if they're going to make a run at the top spot, because it takes one away from Georgia, and it would give them a shot at landing up to 3 5-star defensive linemen down the stretch. The other 2 5-star the Buckeyes have a great shot at are Keon Keeley and Mateo Uiagalelei. As it stands now, I like Ohio State having a better shot at landing the duo of Wilson and Uiagalelei than I think they do of landing Keeley and Uiagalelei. I don't know if this will ultimately boost Ohio State to number 1, but they would have a good shot at passing Notre Dame and potentially making it into the top 3. Okay, Texas comes in at number 5. I'm going to be honest with you, there's really not a path for Texas to grab the top spot, but there are a few non-defensive linemen that could give them a bump in the rankings. The Longhorns don't have a shot at the number 1 class, but they could improve their standing down the stretch if they're able to sign 5-star linebacker Anthony Hill and 4-star defensive back Javian Toviano. Hill is the number 1 linebacker in America and the 18th best player overall. He could give the Horns a nice boost. However, Toviano is ranked outside the top 50, and likely they just don't have enough juice to put him into the top 3. That's the rundown of where the premium beef could land. It's possible that one of these teams, meaning Alabama, Georgia, or Ohio State, could land 2 or 3 of the remaining 6 5-star defensive linemen. If Alabama or Ohio State can land half of the names I mentioned, that would almost ensure a top 2 finish for both schools. Of course, there are a few situations that you got to monitor as well. For example, Ohio State is working hard to flip Alabama 5-star safety Caleb Downs, and Georgia is also working to flip one of the Tide's 5-star running backs, Justice Haynes. These aren't the only names. There's a lot of potential movement on the chessboard still, and we're going to have a great time following all of this drama on the run-up to signing day. Let's just see which team heads to the butcher counter and picks up that premium Wagyu. Thank you for watching. Make sure you smash that subscribe button for me, and remember to check out all the videos on the On3 YouTube page.